12:01 on the dot. Welcome everyone to the Region 8 Disaster Health Learning Community Echo. We're so excited you're here. Um, Today we're going to be having Mike Russo present. So if you could just advance to the next slide, please. And as everyone's trickling in, we just invite you to add your name and role and organization to the chat. Thanks so much. So very brief overview over what Project Echo is. It is a case-based virtual learning model that connects experts and practitioners through telemonitoring, and they use a all teach, all learn approach. So just focusing on getting the right knowledge to the right place at the right time. We use the Echo model just to mainly expand access across communities who might not have access to this kind of information, and just to expand our reach as a treatment center. Next slide, please. So it is hosted by Denver Health and Hospital Authority. We have a funding award through the Echo Institute and Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, and we host sessions bi-weekly. So it'll run through September of 2026. And we primarily focus on states in Region 8, so Colorado, Utah, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, and Wyoming. So our purpose is to really just to build a regional community of practice for emergency preparedness, and talk through some case-based approach, and have more of a discussion-based kind of learning style. So with that, I am very excited to introduce Mike Russo. We want to advance the next slide. Perfect. He is the Vice President of Strategic Growth at Drake Field Services, where he leads on-site medical and injury management solutions for high-risk operational environments. He brings more than 30 years of experience in the ski and action sports industry, including 2 decades as a ski patroller, giving him deep firsthand insight into risk, injury response, and workplace safety in challenging conditions. He previously served as the corporate director of risk management for the Powder Corp, overseeing risk strategy for over 15 ski and action sports facilities and more than 8,000 employees, where he later served as senior vice president at Job Site Care, where he helped deliver workplace injury management and telemedicine solutions to the construction industry. Earlier in his career, he also helped build a boutique law practice in Boston, adding a unique legal and operational lens to his work. He continues to serve the field through board and advisory roles of the Colorado Rapid Avalanche Deployment and the National Ski Patrol Risk Management Development Committee and Team Summit, Colorado. He's based out of Summit County, Colorado, and brings a rare combination of field experience, executive leadership, and practical risk management expertise. We're thrilled to have him here with us today. And just a few quick disclosures. That this information is just not meant to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment, and that we have no relevant financial exposure or financial interest relationships to disclose. So with that, I will hand it over to Mike. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Ariana, and thank you so much that I don't have to go through all that and introduce myself. That's wonderful. I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on TV, so this is great. Looking forward to lots of questions from everybody. And so I don't have a lot of slides today, which is great. We can kind of talk about some of my experiences, things that I've dealt with, and I'd love to just have lots of questions. Audio or chat. Audio would be great. I'm not sure how many people we have total with us today, but I think it's a fairly small group. And if you want to unmute your mic and just interrupt me and ask a question or raise your hand, Ariana will be monitoring the chat as well. So with that, she did a great job of overview of myself. And so I put together just some brief objectives. We want to talk about safety culture a little bit, talk about some strategies on coordinating between medical responses for resorts and towns, first responders, and the regional healthcare systems within those communities. We can talk about a risk assessment for preparedness for planning. Again, trying to use some real world examples, and then some cold weather considerations for mountain environments. So the picture on the left, I think, is a really good image of when local resources can help in the resort environment. And this is Likely the situation where there's a chairlift evacuation that's needed is typically handled in most places 100% by ski patrol, but in situations and locations where they can get a ladder in, it is nice to get that assistance from local fire department. Obviously, that takes pre-planning and coordination. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Just want to talk a little bit about safety culture, the things that I've experienced over the years and sort of my journey and learning. I think early on in my ski patrol career, I always thought that culture was just the policy and procedure, and either you did it right or you didn't, and you might be reprimanded for that. But as I became more mature and learned more about safety programs and safety management systems, I learned that really it starts with the leadership commitment. And so, in no matter where you are, whatever entity you work in, whether it's a ski resort or a fire service, that commitment to safety starts with the leadership, and it needs to be that leadership is engaged. And so, what does that mean on a practical basis? It means that the leaders are partaking in the trainings. They're really setting the example on doing things right and then supporting those folks that are delivering that content down to all the other staff members. Part of that commitment to safety is proactive hazard identification. So making sure that if you're in an environment where you need to identify hazards, you're doing walkthroughs, it's just part of woven into the fabric of who you are as an organization, and that this is what we do. We go out and try to find these things that can hurt or kill our people, and try to mitigate those hazards as much as possible. Um, of course, with that is clear communication. And so, communication up and down at all levels in terms of what happens when there's a hazard that's been identified. Who do I tell? And what happens from there? And if folks in the organization don't understand what those communication pathways are, then you're not going to be successful. Um, you want to make sure you have good testing of skills and practical skills for folks, making sure they have the requisite skills to go out and complete tasks safely. One example that jumps into my head is snowmobile training, say for folks at a ski area, employees. Um, Many of those people may have had snowmobile training somewhere in their life or experience, but driving a snowmobile at a ski area is unlike anything else related to snowmobiling. And so having the right testing and competency evaluations in place is important for everybody's health and safety as well as from a liability standpoint. And then just having the mindset that this is not a one and done. We're not going to train and just revisit this same topic in 12 months. We're going to continue to revisit these high hazard topics frequently throughout the year. So that continuous improvement mindset. Um, this is I pick up on little phrases and quotes. Sometimes I can't always remember where they come from, but they kind of stick in my head. And so if I'm plagiarizing from somebody recognizes this, I apologize. But culture eats policy for breakfast, right? So you need to make sure that your organization is not performing safely because that's the policy, but you want them to do it because it's the right thing to do, and they want to go home safe to their loved ones at the end of the day. So. With that, let me just pause. Any questions, thoughts, comments on safety culture or myself and my background? Okay, we'll keep forging ahead. So Ariana sort of touched on some of my background. This was a point in my career where I was part of the Rapid Avalanche Deployment System. So what that is it's a great community program that's born out of Summit County, Colorado, and copied in other regions throughout Colorado, where the local sheriff's department will work with the local Flight for Life evac program, and they'll train avalanche technicians, which would be the first person that gets on a helicopter and gets deployed to an avalanche rescue and recovery site. And then the second part of the team would be the dog and the dog handler. And so the way that this program works is um, there would be an avalanche. It would be called into 911 likely. They would figure out the closest resort location to that avalanche site. The sheriff would then call that ski patrol dispatch. They would say, "Hey, do you guys have an avalanche technician and an avalanche dog and dog handler available today to be deployed?" And it would be yes or no. And then if yes, the helicopter would land at the top of the mountain. The flight medic and the flight nurse would get out of the helicopter and then go into the patrol headquarters, and then into the helicopter would go in the avalanche technician and the dog and dog handler, who would then be dropped into the avalanche site to begin the search process. So it's just a great example of collaboration between public entities like sheriff's departments and public health organizations, as well as local private businesses like ski resorts. So that all is great, but it starts with a lot of pre-season planning and relationship building. A lot of times, and I've seen this in other communities that I've been fortunate to work with around the country, not just in Colorado, but other ski states like Vermont, New Hampshire, California. And I would go in and ask, about what is your relationship with the local sheriff or police or fire? And sometimes it was, well, we would just call 911, and that's not really the answer that I was looking for. I was looking for the type of answer that says, "Oh, I know that chief, and we meet twice a year, and they understand the risks and the types of situations we're dealing with at our resort. And we have a discussion around, when the ambulance comes, what to expect from a patient who has been packaged by ski patrol, and how we can all work together." And so having those clearly defined roles and responsibilities and handoff protocols, I think, is really important. A lot of times, the handoff procedures aren't very straightforward, where the ambulance goes to a very defined place. Sometimes it might be, "Hey, we need the ambulance to go to this place that we maybe didn't talk about. And this is how we're going to get you there. We're going to meet the ambulance. We're going to sort of escort the ambulance to this spot. And we have this medical situation unfolding." And so I think when you have a lot of those relationships pre-established, it makes things just go a lot more smoothly. Not just relationship building, but actually joint training and exercises can take it one step further, like that situation with the fire truck helping in a chairlift evacuation. Those things go a long way. Another great example of that, and more recent and relevant, is the wildfire threat throughout the Mountain West. And so many of the resorts are now inviting the local fire department to review and discuss and interact with their snowmaking systems, because now you've got snowmaking pipes and a water system spread throughout a mountain, and you want to be able to utilize that water. Well, we started this years and years ago. Well, the first thing we learned very quickly was that the firefighter apparatus, so the hoses and the valves and the connections, are nothing like what the snowmakers use in those snowmaking systems. So we had to kind of run through and talk about, "Hey, if we need to fire up the system, this is how this works, and this is what you can expect. This is how much water flow you can have," and things like that. Real-time information sharing. So radio systems, who's going to be on what radio, and this type of scenario evolved over time in certain locations where we would even share a mountain radio with an EMS agency or a fire or sheriff's department, so they had access and could talk directly to a mountain dispatcher. Um, and vice versa, we would have a county radio that we could talk directly to a helicopter that needed to land. And again, that direct communication just made the whole process much safer. And of course, after action reviews are always great, a great debrief, sitting down after something happens and talking through, okay, what could have been done better, and what can we take away from this, and how can we make this better and safer for everybody next time. So, questions, thoughts? Has anyone ever had any experience related to this? No. Okay. I will move on. Um, so this is what this is a picture of is actually Copper Mountain in Colorado. And this is a task called boot packing. And so this is at Copper Mountain. This is actually a volunteer program where you can sign up as a volunteer and you have to complete so many days per season, and you get a season pass once. Well, actually, you get the pass when you sign up, but if you don't complete your days, you might not get invited back next year. But what this entails is taking members of the public and walking down ski slopes, and you're walking down, disturbing the snow, trying to break through those snow layers to compact it, which ultimately will mitigate the avalanche danger later in the season. And so, again, this is sort of a great example of community collaboration between a local for-profit business looking for help from the public to do this kind of work. It's exhausting and it takes a lot of people to pull it off. I think Copper has a roster of about 80 volunteers that sign up on a yearly basis, and then they have to do 7 days per year, and you get your free pass. So, but it is pretty tiring. So. I saw some chat in there, Ariana. Are those questions or what do we have in there?
Yeah, we had just someone speaking to their experience saying that they pick up patients from Sea Patrol several times each season. Robert, not sure if you wanted to expand on that or any questions.
Yes, we are the first responders. The ski patrol gets the patients off the mountain, puts in a 911 call to us. We go up there, we package them, we give them nitrous if they need pain management. We are advanced EMTs. We are not paramedics, but we get them it's an hour and a half ride to the hospital, depending on the roads. It's up in the mountains. And that's all. Just you would ask, and I was providing that.
Yeah, thank you, Robert. I remember those days of using nitrous, and it was pretty clunky to have to ski those tanks down to the patient to get that all set up. And so, luckily, at some of the bigger resorts, it's quite commonplace, at least in Colorado, that with the support of ALS providers, we can use fentanyl. And so, trying to splint a femur fracture in the woods where it's going to be a difficult extrication, lifting that person, getting them in the toboggan. So, but yeah, for those long ambulance rides and having those EMT basics, having the nitrous, I'm sure makes the patients feel a little bit better. So thank you for that. Um, so there's a lot that goes on in these mountain towns. These are generally smaller communities, and then all of a sudden they swell up either summer and winter with a visiting vacation population. And so, I just picked up on one thing here, which was, potential carbon monoxide poisoning, right? And so now with the introduction of short-term rentals, the VRBOs, the Airbnbs, who's making sure that these units have proper CO detection? Are you seeing incident rates that are above the normal rate? And so how do you reach these populations? Maybe these visitors are from a warm climate where they're not accustomed to using home heating devices that could potentially cause carbon monoxide poisoning. So that's just one example. Another example where I've run into a lot of frustration from local communities is around visiting skiers who don't understand specifically the Colorado Skier Safety Act and what they're supposed to do when there's a collision on the slopes and sort of the perceived increase in collisions between skiers. And so we embarked on a big campaign at some of the resorts and as an industry around trying to educate folks on, when you're in a crowded situation on the slopes, that's the time to kind of slow down, pay attention to the designated slow zones that are designated by the resorts, typically on the trail maps or out on the slopes. Now they have the slow banners right in the middle of the trail telling you this is a slow zone. Um, And so that can be extremely difficult to somebody who's visiting a resort town for a week. How do you get all this information into their hands? I think trying to get as much information in their rental units is a good way to do it, certainly through registration processes, registration emails, what to expect when you arrive type information. Those are some of the strategies we've used around around the country, and particularly in the Mountain West at the high altitude areas, uh, educating folks on, hey, I know it's your vacation, but now you're sort of vacationing at 9,000 feet where you're staying in your condo. You might not want to have six, eight, or 10 beers and some French fries for dinner. Maybe hydrate a little bit, have a little bit more reasonable meal because you'll feel better over the coming days trying to acclimate to the altitude. So, I'm going to jump in and talk a little bit about sort of some hazards around mental health for both ski patrol and first responders. So this was my time as a risk manager for a ski conglomerate. We had a small ski area, and I'll throw out some numbers there. I didn't put the numbers in the slide, but I will sort of mention them that. And these numbers are readily available through the National Ski Area Association, and so I'm not really revealing anything that's sort of confidential, but um, the fatality rate in the ski industry is about one fatality per approximately 1 million skier visits. So a skier visit is just somebody showing up at a resort for one day of skiing or snowboarding. And so again, one fatality per 1 million skier visits. So at a large resort, it could be that they do about 1 million skier visits a year. So they would likely see maybe one fatality. In this particular year, this particular season, I'm not going to name the season or the resort. I'm trying to make it as confidential as possible, but this ski area was about 250,000 skier visits per year. So you can kind of do the math there. Um, this particular season, they had five fatalities. And so just off the charts. Ariana and I were talking before the session just around like skier conditions currently right now through many of the Mountain West resorts. I haven't had a lot of snow. The snow that's there is getting hard and fast and firm. So when you fall, it might be a harder surface. It's not 6, 8 inches of powder. You could then take a further slide, hit rocks, trees, other objects. And so in this particular year, as I reflect back, it definitely during this time period, it was a period of maybe a little bit less snow where this small resort's located. But we really couldn't find any connection between these incidents and say the conditions or user groups. And certainly we tried because I think even after the second incident, we were all just kind of blown away that they had had two fatalities. And certainly by the fifth fatality, it was mentally exhausting for everybody involved. And so I know in the EMS community, as well as in the ski patrol community, um, there's been a big push to address mental health. And I put here some information around structured programs, in particular, Laura McGladrey out of Colorado and her program called the Responder Alliance. If you haven't looked at that, she does amazing work. And so at the time that this incident or these incidents were unfolding, I was in a risk management position, and I typically would sort of I would deploy as soon as a location had any fatality, whether it was a guest or an employee, and I'd try to be on site the next day to help them through the investigation and just coping. And so, of course, by the fifth time, we're all just physically and mentally exhausted going through this process. And I myself found myself needing sort of to sit in the incident stress debriefs. And it was extremely helpful. And having seen how this program unfolds firsthand, the Responder Alliance, I would definitely recommend taking a look at it. So, any thoughts on mental health or how folks are addressing mental health issues for first responders in their communities?
Yes, just one question, I guess, that I have. I'd love to hear a little bit more about what kind of approaches you would take? I know mental health can be a bigger umbrella to cover.
In Montana, we have several of our counties have CISM teams or CIST teams, computer critical incident team, critical incident scene management or teams. We have one in Cascade County, which covers our local ski area here. I know there's others around the state, and we work with EMS, law enforcement, fire, and search and rescue groups like that.
Yep. Wonderful. Thank you, Robert. Robert, you sound like maybe you might be from the East Coast originally. Is that true?
That is true. I started in Massachusetts. The military brought me to Montana. They sent me away, and I came back because I love it here.
Yeah, I'm born and raised Boston native. I learned to ski at Blue Hill, so that's where I hail from as well.
There you go.
Great. Well, thanks for again, Robert. Thanks for that info. Um, that was really it. How many again, Ariana, how many folks did we end up with in the final session count?
We have 14 people in our
14.
session. Yeah.
Okay. Um, if you can't tell, I love dogs. This was a great time back in my career where I got to be outside, but also bring a dog to work. So, um, not so much the case anymore these days. I'm working and helping companies in many different industries, obviously all labor-based, oil and gas, pipeline, construction, kind of help solve their remote injury problem. How do we get medics onto sites in certain locations? Technology has gone a long way to help, specifically telemedicine, and being able to bring advanced practitioners right to the job site and in somebody's hand, holding an iPhone and doing a FaceTime call with a doctor who's kind of doing an assessment and providing some guidance and comfort to somebody who's injured in the field. And I think the industry really is just in its infancy, and so it's really exciting to see where this kind of stuff is going. And I think it's certainly relevant in these remote communities as technology gets better. And how can we bring more services to remote communities and just help folks through whatever they've got going on. So. What else can I answer for questions, thoughts, concerns, anything we should talk about today?
Michael, my name is Yasmin Abiad, and I'm an emergency manager in the city of South Salt Lake, but I also contract with the Sundance Film Festival, which is happening now. Its last year is in Utah. And just speaking to, visitors, this is not my industry per se, but seeing the visitors that come up to Park City for both the festival and for skiing, seeing how many people rent lodging and don't really know what they're getting into. And then also seeing the amount of people we have that either become unconscious or pass out from lack of hydration, elevation, all that kind of stuff, I think is super interesting. And so thank you for touching on that because I don't think we see that enough. But it is something huge that I wish more people were aware of.
Yeah, I've actually been in Park City because my old corporate office is there, and so I've been there during that event, and I've seen the group that comes in, so I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's not unlike folks that come from any other low-lying kind of environment, but they're there. It's a beautiful place. They're there with friends. They're there for maybe a vacation or an event, and they want to have a good time. And so, maybe they're used to having three or four or five drinks, but trying to convince them that maybe they should only have one or two can be a challenge. So it's kind of like live and learn, and maybe hopefully next time they come back, they have a better experience.
No, exactly. I think that is very, very true.
Anyone else? Okay. Ariana, closing comments?
Yeah, just huge thank you for giving a presentation today. Again, I always really enjoy these and learn something myself. Got a couple thank yous in the comments as well. Um, if you wouldn't mind, we have a QR code to just gather some evaluation that'll also be distributed after the survey, or excuse me, after the presentation. If you have any questions at all, please just reach out to the email listed there at the bottom of the slide. And up next on February 6th, we have our next session, and it'll be on the Utah measles response. So lessons learned from front lines of epidemiology and infection prevention. So if that is up your alley, please do join us. And in the meantime, just huge thank you again to Mike for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ariana. Appreciate everybody's time. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Bye.